The 18th of October, Ukraine Media Center is running our program. We are talking about the cold snap in Ukraine and the safety tips for using furnaces and electrical appliances. Nataliia Ptukha is the spokesperson for the Ukrainian Hydrometeorological Center, and Oleksandr Chekryhin is the director for the Emergency Prevention Department of the State Emergency State Service. Ma'am, may I ask you about the following? We were unhappy with the heat wave. Now we are facing the cold snap. Where does it come from? When we will see the better weather conditions again? Now, currently, the lowering of temperature has been caused by the fact that the anticyclone, the high-pressure zone, is coming our way. It means that the cold weather is coming from the north. Correspondingly, this is where the cold weather is coming to Ukraine. Now we are all seeing the colder weather looming large, and we'll see the frosts in the nights, meaning that we will see on the ground and in the air, we will see for the next 48 hours quite intensive cold snaps from 0 to plus 50 degrees. Perhaps the eastern part of country will avoid this situation due to the precipitation and the clouds. Clouds will save them from the cold weather, but otherwise the coming nights will be quite cold, beginning with the third decade of October, that is starting from the 22nd of October. We'll see the change in configuration of weather conditions in Ukraine, meaning that we'll see the change in weather, not dramatic one, but it will mean that the frosts will not be there, and if they will be, and if they are, they will be felt only locally. We'll see the temperature from +2 to +8 centigrades, meaning that the weather will be more comfortable, warming, if I may say so. We will see it in the area of 15 to 17 degrees. Following the 22nd of October, a major part of Ukraine will see the temperature on average 16 to 17 degrees centigrade. How long that comfortable weather will last? From the 20th of October, it'll be quite stable. Following that, we'll see the changes in the atmosphere structures. Now what we are seeing is will be stable without precipitations until the end of the month. It's quite cold now, but we are likely to see the weather frosts. In terms of the heating season, what we are expecting is, when we talk about the weather conditions, for the central heating to be functioning, it means that we'll have to see the streak of temperature on average 8 degrees centigrade. Now, in the Kiev region, we are seeing the temperature below 8 degrees centigrade, but following up, the trend will be for the temperature to increase at the area of 9 degrees centigrade. So the decisions will be made by the individual government bodies. In general, when we talk about the heating season in the cold weather, the recent trend is that more often than not, we see that this period has been shortened by 18 to 15 days. Sometimes global warming leads to a fact that the warmer periods are lasting longer. On average, month temperatures are on the north of what has been a general trend. Correspondingly, we see that the general temperature is higher than the recent trends. We all remember the 19 2019 to 20, we saw that the winter actually didn't come in and didn't set in. So what we are expecting is that this heating season in general, the temperature on average in that period will be higher than the climatic norm by 1 or 2 degrees. Of course, there will be exceptions. For November and December, perhaps the actual weather will be very close to general trends. Does not mean that this has been caused by the global warming. It is explained by the fact that the Arctic weather will be looming large on Ukraine, but the period of cold weather is shortening. We are approaching winter. We saw the snowfalls in the Carpathian Mountains. When are we to expect snow coming our way in different regions of this country? Now, for the snow to be constantly lying on the ground, in practical terms, as I've mentioned, until the end of October, there will be no precipitations. Beginning November, the synoptic picture will change, and according to our calculations, we are likely to see the cyclone bringing in the mixed precipitations, the showers, and we'll see that the autumn will be setting in. Now, amidst the change of weather in balances and global warming, of course, we saw that September was quite hot in some southern regions. The summer, meteorologically speaking, lasted for 180 days, which means half a year. So we are seeing the dilution of these zones and their definitions and borders all over the country. Thank you, ma'am. Let us talk about the safety measures. Now, some people are beginning to use electric appliances or using their furnaces. As for the statistics, do we have data for the last year's period, how many incidents we saw connected to the irresponsible use of different stoves and appliances? Of course, the data are available, but I would like to appreciate the fact that you have raised this issue with us when we are seeing the winter period coming. The statistics show that our citizens not always are very attentively listening to what you have to say. They're not living up to the recommendations of the Ukrainian Emergency Prevention and Emergency Service of Ukraine. Last year, we saw more than 9,000 fires with a death toll of 864 people, 23 kids among them. 665 people were injured, 65 children were also victims of such fires. If we look more closely into this 9,000 fires that we saw, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that almost 3,000 fires were caused by the electric appliances, by shortcuts and different appliances that we are likely to talk about at a later stage. The next point is more than 2,500, almost 2,600 fires because the safety rules were breached when the stoves and furnaces are being used. Now, this is a very important point. And you see, 2,022 fires were caused by the irresponsible smoking in your bed and the use of DIY appliances. Once again, we call on people not to breach the safety measures because the toll is very high, leaving people dead or injured. You made the right point both of you, the anchor and my colleague, the cold weather is coming our way, and many people believe that -2 degrees centigrade or -15 degrees mean that sooner or later you begin heating your households, your assets and your ownership, and your buildings. We can divide that into electrical devices, stoves, and gas appliances. Let me draw your attention to the following. Before you use such appliances, they should be checked for the functionality safety measures, whether it's a boiler or any other electric devices. Any electric appliance altogether must read the manual, which says where it should be used, how it can be used, what are the characteristics of such a appliance. When my colleagues are called to extinguish fires, some Ukrainians tend to believe that they remember after the fact that there was a manual and how the disaster could have been avoided on such emergency. Once again, let us read the manuals. Let us follow the manuals. The manuals are very strict and very specific in how to use such appliances. As for the stoves and electrical appliances, electrical heaters must be devoid of any technical damages. As for the electrical appliances, I would like to make a point, an additional one, to zero in on the kids factor. Now, the children must not be allowed to use on their own electrical devices. You see, you can't tell your kid, go and check the electric appliance. This is the responsibility of the grown-ups. We see how the washed linens are being dried on the electrical appliances. This is not acceptable. The safety rules are being changed all the time. When we analyze the reasons for fires, we realize that some people are using electrical appliances and the cords are lying under the floor, under the carpet, which seems to be reasonable. No, it is not acceptable because it can lead to a fire. Now, another point I would like to make is that the electric heaters must not be set in the pathways of evacuations in your buildings. They are not to be used near the furniture or any sources of fire. And of course, it is forbidden to use electrical appliances because some people are wise to use them in the bathroom. Some, funny moments that we see. The funny story, the fan was drowned in the bath. This is only indicative of the breaches of the safety rules. Now, electrical heaters must not be left on their own when we leave households, and of course when we go to sleep. Unfortunately, the practice and the expertise is that people are lying in bed, fall asleep, and the appliances are working, leading to some lethal results. Again, I call on everybody to follow the recommendations, and that will provide our safety. Another point is when people are using furnaces and wood-fired stones. Now, let me remind you what is strictly forbidden. Now, when the ovens are used, as I mentioned in terms of the electrical appliances, you must check whether they are ready to be functioning. They have to be cleaned, and again, it must not be done one time. The soot must be checked at least one time per 3 months. You see, it will lead to the condensation of soot and will lead to a fire in the structure. When we talk about the area around the stoves, again, I mentioned that at least you have to have 1.7 meters, 0.7 meters to furniture. At least 1 meter and 25 centimeters distance must be observed. In front of every stove, a metal sheet must be laid on the floor where you put the wood in. This is the best way to evade the fire when the remnants of fire are falling on the floor. The kid factor. Kids must not be in charge of the stoves. They must not be asked to clean the ember or the small live coals. The stoves must not be used when the feeding in door is open. The remnants of fire, the remnants of coal, the slag or dross must not be thrown away before it has been extinguished. Of course, such a distance must be at least 15 meters. Again, to reiterate, the slag must be watered down. When you use the stove, of course, you have to be very careful because there are a lot of dangers there. And again, we must not use the gas channels or ventilation channels for taking the smoke away. Again, I will be talking about later, at a later stage, about the gas stoves. Every citizen must use the site of the emergency service of Ukraine. We've got an official site, we've got social network presence, and there is a lot of useful information. This is a story when you'd better devote 5 minutes of your time to know what can and what cannot be done to prevent the dangers. I want everybody to be very much self-conscious. As for the gas boilers, a couple of points. When we feel that there is a leak of gas, the service called the gas service 104 is their number. They must be called before you do anything else. You must not on yourself check whether there is a gas leak with the matches. This is the problem that we see all over the place. We see on television about the bursts of gas. We are not using any electrical appliances at that point because anything leading to a sparkle can lead to a disaster. So again, we call the gas service before we do anything else. We waiting for them. They will do their job. Now, to be on the safe side of things and to be aware that the gas is around, one thing there to know that there is a gas leak and there is a carbon monoxide leak. There must be some appliances installed. This is a better way for prevention. On my personal note, I would like to say that the officers of the Emergency Situation Service are doing the colossal amount of work to raise the public awareness. We are working with children that we address specifically for kids. There are special games for children to enjoy on their smartphones, teaching them how to act in any sort of emergency situation. But we must be consciously behaving and thinking what we do, no matter how much information is available. Unless you are behaving in a responsible way, the results will be lacking. I call on everybody in Ukraine, let us make this country safer. Next year, when we have such a meeting, we'll have a fewer examples of emergencies. May I ask you in terms of the clarification? In terms of applied heating processes in the multi-story buildings, when we use the gas stove for heating the flats, can we do that? No, you cannot. Once the weather is intolerably cold, my advice is to use your warmer clothes. And sometimes the spirits, I mean the tea or coffee. Now back to you, ma'am. The weather, perhaps I digress from the point of ours. When I look at my smartphone, I see that the Ukrainian Hydrometeorological Center forewarned that Kyiv is facing complex situation. We are likely to see the lowering of weather. I look outside. What are they talking about? Do I have to pay attention to those messages? You see, this is not a digression. This is right. You're staying on the message. But people want to know what to expect and whether to use their heating appliances. You make a very good point. The Ukrainian Meteorological Center, as part of the international meteorological project with the Finnish partners, we have become a part of the platform where we can feed in our information. This international platform accumulates all the weather warnings from different countries, and then they are reiterated, duplicated in these telephone applications. The warning that you have read and announced means that we are facing this second level of danger in terms of frosts. You see, we have been experiencing quite a long period of warm weather, and the vegetation of plants is still taking place, and people are still haven't finished their agricultural functionings. But they should be warned that, in general, the weather will be lower the freezing point, which is a danger point in the meteorological terms. We will see frost not only on the ground, but in the air as well. People should be forewarned. Of course, in a couple of days' time, starting 21st of October, in 3 nights' time, we'll see the colds, all the vegetation and plants that have not been gathered. Of course, they will wither away. Of course, it's not a dangerous situation, but then we will see, once we have the temperatures below 0 centigrade, we will see that it's a typical weather for such a weather spell. Now, when we talk about the second level of danger, meaning frosts in the air and on the ground, will be, of course, going down to the first level, the lowest one. You see, this is a breakthrough for Ukraine, that we are on the same map with the European countries in terms of, it's called Meteor Alarm, the name of the platform. Due to the project that we are doing together with Finland, this is an achievement. This is a breakthrough to provide information for our users. Do you plan any events on explaining meteorological things for the media, something that we, the journalists, are not aware of? Indeed, next week we'll see a major event under the aegis of the United Nations Development Project. It's called the Filter Project. We will have a seminar for the journalists in terms of the meteorological culture, to tell them what the cyclone is. You see, we communicate with the media, and sometimes we understand that the basic things, people don't understand them. Perhaps it's not their business to work out such terms. But when we talk about the weathermen and weather news, they must be very specific and very informative. Unfortunately, We see the clickbaiting titles in the Ukrainian media. There's so much negative information in our information space. This is where we want to talk about to the media, that you should avoid manipulation of such weather data, not to exaggerate things when we talk about the weather forecasts, because it leads to a distrust and mistrust of official information. People seem to be confused about what to expect, whether to trust the information coming from the media. We have to make sure that the information is authentic and is unbiased. We have to do it very loud and clear in our warnings and public awareness campaign. This is what we are doing together with the United Nations Development Program and with the Emergency Service of Ukraine through this program called the Filter. Everyone is invited. The media are invited. On the 25th of October, there is a registration form to be filled out in social media and everywhere. It's all over the place, and every journalist is welcome. Unless you have talked to us, you are most welcome to join the conversation. We want to, you see, bring down this all this culture of being on edge. Ma'am, thank you very much. Sir, thank you a lot. Hopefully we will make together our life more safe and less stressful. We've been talking about the safety measures in terms of furnaces and electric appliances. We will continue our operations next week. Stay tuned.